I'm tackling a problem where affinity propagation clustering in Sklearn is taking too long. I need to find ways to speed it up. I'm considering increasing the damping parameter. A higher damping value makes the algorithm more stable, potentially leading to faster convergence by preventing unwanted oscillations, even if it might slightly reduce clustering accuracy. Think of damping like a brake. It slows down the algorithm's updates to avoid overshooting. I could try lowering the damping parameter. While a lower damping value might initially seem like a speed boost, it can actually cause instability and oscillations that end up increasing the runtime. The algorithm might bounce around without settling on a solution. It's a risky option. Increasing the maximum number of iterations, or max_iter, lets the algorithm run longer. While that could help if the algorithm wasn't converging before, it directly increases the runtime. It's not a way to improve runtime, only to potentially improve solution quality. I could also decrease the preference parameter. A lower preference means fewer points are likely to become cluster centers. This usually leads to fewer iterations and faster convergence. Think of it like reducing the number of starting points for the algorithm. The damping parameter controls how quickly the algorithm updates its internal messages. A higher damping value means slower updates, which promotes stability and prevents oscillations, a trade-off for faster convergence. My goal is to figure out which parameter changes in the affinity propagation algorithm will improve the runtime without significantly sacrificing clustering quality. This is all about finding the sweet spot between speed and accuracy. This section describes how changes to the algorithm parameters impact performance and convergence speed. I'm tackling a problem where affinity propagation clustering in Sklearn is running too slowly. I need to find ways to speed it up. I can try increasing the damping parameter. A higher damping value makes the algorithm more stable, which might help it converge faster by preventing it from bouncing around. Think of it like adding friction to a bouncing ball. It settles down more quickly. I could also try lowering the preference parameter. A lower preference means fewer data points will be selected as cluster centers. This often leads to fewer iterations and, therefore, faster computation, which is great. Increasing the maximum number of iterations, max_iter, might seem helpful, but it's actually counterproductive. It only increases runtime, even if it allows the algorithm to complete more iterations. Decreasing the damping parameter might seem like a shortcut to faster convergence, but it's risky. It could cause instability and oscillations, actually making the algorithm take longer to converge, or even fail to converge at all. Avoid this one. I'm tackling a problem where affinity propagation, a clustering algorithm, is taking too long. I want to find ways to speed it up. The affinity propagation algorithm isn't converging quickly enough. It's taking way too long to finish. This parameter controls how quickly the algorithm updates its internal messages. A higher value means slower updates, leading to more stability but potentially slower overall convergence. A lower value means faster updates which can lead to instability. I need to find the sweet spot. This sets a limit on the maximum number of iterations the algorithm will run. Increasing it might help the algorithm converge, but it'll increase computation time. Decreasing it speeds things up, but the result might not be as accurate. This parameter influences how many cluster centers are formed. A lower preference tends to result in fewer clusters and faster computation. A higher preference might lead to more clusters and therefore a longer runtime. I see the problem is that affinity propagation, a clustering algorithm, is taking too long to finish. We need to speed it up. The "damping" parameter controls how quickly the algorithm adjusts its beliefs about which data points are cluster centers. A higher damping value means slower, more cautious changes, like putting the brakes on a car to avoid a bumpy ride. A lower value means faster, more dramatic adjustments, like flooring the gas pedal. Too much speed can lead to instability and prevent the algorithm from settling down. The "max_iter" parameter simply sets a limit on how many times the algorithm will try to find the best clustering solution. Think of it as a maximum number of attempts. More attempts means more time, but you might find a better answer. Fewer attempts will save time, but the answer might not be as good. The preference parameter influences how many cluster centers the algorithm chooses. A high preference value says, I think many points are likely to be cluster centers. This leads to more clusters and more calculations, slowing things down. A low preference says, I'm pretty sure there are only a few cluster centers. This results in fewer clusters and a faster process. This is the core question. How can we adjust the algorithm's settings to make it run faster? Let's find out. The affinity propagation algorithm, which I'm using to group my data, is taking too long to finish. I need ways to speed it up. I can make the algorithm faster by lowering the preference parameter. A lower preference means fewer data points will be chosen as cluster centers, which speeds things up. Increasing the maximum number of iterations, max_iter, will definitely make the algorithm run longer. It might find a better solution, but it won't make it faster. While decreasing the damping parameter might seem like a good idea because it speeds up the initial convergence, it can also cause instability, leading to more iterations and increased overall runtime. It's a risky strategy. I'm looking for ways to make my affinity propagation clustering algorithm run faster. Increasing the damping parameter adds stability to the algorithm, which can help it converge faster. While it might slightly slow down the initial convergence, it often prevents the algorithm from getting stuck in endless loops, making the overall runtime shorter. I see damping as a control knob for the speed and stability of the affinity propagation algorithm. A higher damping value, closer to 1, acts like a brake, slowing down the updates and making the process more stable, but potentially slower to converge. A lower value speeds things up, but it might make the algorithm unstable and prone to bouncing around without settling on a solution. Think of it like adjusting the shock absorbers on a car. More damping means a smoother, slower ride, while less damping means a faster, potentially bumpier ride. The preference parameter influences how many clusters you get. It's like assigning a starting popularity score to each data point. Higher preference values mean data points are more likely to become cluster centers, leading to potentially more clusters and longer computation times. Lower preferences generally mean fewer clusters and faster calculations. Think of a popularity contest. High preference is like giving everyone a head start, potentially leading to more winners, whereas low preference is a more level playing field, potentially leading to fewer winners. This parameter simply sets a limit on the number of times the algorithm tries to converge. Increasing max iterations gives the algorithm more chances to find a solution, but also increases the runtime. It's like setting a time limit on a puzzle. More time means a better chance of solving it, but it takes longer. Decreasing this parameter, on the other hand, will definitely speed up the computation but might lead to an incomplete or suboptimal solution. It's a trade-off between solution quality and computational time. This question focuses on identifying strategies to speed up the affinity propagation algorithm without sacrificing the solution quality too much. The goal is to understand the algorithm's parameters and how they relate to both convergence speed and solution quality. This is the overall topic: making affinity propagation, a clustering method, run faster. Affinity propagation is a specific type of clustering algorithm known for its ability to automatically determine the number of clusters, but it can be computationally intensive. I'm tackling a common problem: making affinity propagation, AP, clustering, a powerful technique for finding groups in data, run faster. AP can be slow, so I need to understand how to tweak its settings. We are looking at ways to speed it up. The AP algorithm isn't converging quickly. That means it's taking too long to settle on its final groupings of data points. My goal is to find ways to make it converge more rapidly. The preference parameter influences how many cluster centers the algorithm finds. By decreasing it, I encourage fewer clusters. Fewer clusters generally means fewer computations and faster convergence, making the algorithm speed up. The damping parameter controls the algorithm's stability. Increasing it adds stability, but it can slow down initial convergence. However, the increased stability helps prevent endless oscillations that waste time, potentially leading to faster overall convergence. The max_iter parameter sets an upper limit on the number of iterations. Increasing it could potentially help reach convergence if the algorithm is cutting off early. However, that would increase the computation time. I won't do this to optimize the runtime. Lowering the damping parameter might speed up initial convergence, but it risks instability. The algorithm might oscillate endlessly without finding a solution, actually increasing the total runtime. That's counterproductive. I'm choosing among parameter adjustments that improve the AP algorithm's speed by reducing computation time, ensuring efficient convergence without sacrificing results quality.